What's up, guys? I'm Kel, and this is Conspiracy Connections. On Conspiracy Connections, I decide what's fact and what's whack based on my own personal opinions. So if you have any questions or additional info, please feel free to comment. With every art piece, there's a style that meets the canvas, such as optical, abstract, pop, and millennial. Those art styles correlate to obsessive, misunderstood, comic relief, and wildcard characters. So with that being said, I'll be discussing different categories of craziness in animation, its place as an art, and characters that represent each category of craziness. Before we go into the video, there are a few stipulations or criteria. First, the character has to be a recurring character, no one-off characters. Second, their role in the show has to affect the plot. They can't just be a background character that doesn't do anything for majority of the time. Third, they're crazy majority of the time. That kind of speaks for itself. And the last is mostly self-aware. There are going to be some exceptions to this later in the video, but majority of the time they are self-aware and they realize that they are crazy. Those are the criteria, and let's go into the video. Before going over the categories, here's a quick spoiler, because if you couldn't already tell, these episodes will define a lot of the series and characters. So it's probably best for you to go ahead and watch those episodes and series so you can get an understanding of why I called each character crazy. So with that being said, let's go to the first category. First, we have comic relief characters, which also correlate to pop art. Comic relief characters ease tension, they're loyal, and normally good. The first character I'm gonna go over is Muscle Man, and the reason why I picked Muscle Man as a crazy comic relief character is because Muscle Man, his main purpose is to prank everybody that's involved in whatever situation in some way. Next, we have obsessive characters, which correlate to optical art. Obsessive characters usually serve as a barrier to the main character or the protagonist in shows. They have one sole purpose most of the time, and they're morally gray to evil. With that being said, the first obsessive character I have, also massive spoiler alert, because these episodes are pretty important to understanding the origin of the characters. So the first character we have is Denzel Crocker. If you watched Fairly Odd Parents at all, you know that he's the crazy teacher who's always after Timmy and his fairies. But it wasn't always like that. He wasn't always crazy. He was actually a very nice kid. But one day, back in 1972, March 15th, he lost his fairies because Cosmo ended up telling everybody. Fast forward, it was present day 2002, March 15th. And Timmy noticed every year that Mr. Crocker was always upset the most on March 15th. He wanted to figure out why he was always super mad during that day. Because he was thinking it's just a regular day. It's nothing different than any other day. So he went back several decades. First joined in 1992. He didn't really see anything different there. Mr. Crocker was still very mean. Before then, 1982, still nothing. And finally, they arrive in 1972. They figure out that Cosmo ends up telling the public that Mr. Crocker has fairies, and it's this whole thing. Jordan comes down and takes away his fairies, wipes away his memory. But before then, he wrote on the device that fairies exist, and that's how he remembered that fairies exist and he should continue searching for them. That's what he thought in his mind. But Timmy comes back to that time to try to stop Cosmo from doing it again. Cosmo ends up causing Timmy to say that Mr. Crocker has fairies on the mic because he turned it on. Of course, it means Cosmo. What do you expect? Yeah, at that point, basically everything was set in stone again, and Jordan banned them from the time period, so they couldn't go back. So that's how Mr. Crocker ended up being crazy. The second character we have is Plankton, and the episode that really shows why he's crazy or obsessive is Friend or Foe. If you watch Friend or Foe, you know that him and Mr. Krabs used to be best buddies until one day where they were fighting over ingredients. Plankton ripped a piece of it off, but it was chum. That chum was one of the ingredients to make up Krabby Patties, but Mr. Krabs had most of the important ingredients. to make up a Krabby Patty. And that pinch of chum was all Plankton thought he needed to make Krabby Patties. And he's been trying to do that ever since that point in time. But obviously that has not been successful for him, or not worked for him. But yeah, he is an honorable mention, so I won't really spend too much more time on him. You know who Plankton is anyway, so it's not really that much I have to say that hasn't already been said. Third, we have misunderstood or abstract characters. And the thing about those characters is that they typically have a traumatic event that caused them to be crazy. They're morally bad to good. It varies a lot between these characters. And they're typically a social outcast. Honestly, misunderstood and obsessive can kind of flow into one another. And you're going to see that one of the characters I mentioned in this. But they are a little bit different. Just a tad bit different. The first character we have is Old Man McGucket from Gravity Falls, if you didn't know. The episode that really shows why he's crazy is the Society of the Blind Eye in season 2. Before going over the episode, let's give a quick rundown on who Old Man McGucket was, or is. He's a crazy old man, basically senile. And that's what they kind of think for most of the show. They think that he's just a senile old man that doesn't know what he's talking about. He's always saying these crazy stuff that nobody understands. And people's like, well, he's always been like that. That's just who he is. But in the episode, people are mysteriously being taken away by these hooded figures. And they seem like they don't know anything. And they clearly see mysterious things happen. They eventually go in, figure out who's behind the Society of the Blind Eye and all of that. But Old Man McGucket finds his memory. They essentially have stocks of people's memories. They have it stored, right? And Old Man McGucket finds his stocked old memories. And they see that he slowly descends from a normal conspiracy theorist or scientist type guy to a crazier and crazier man. And over the course of hundreds of days, he just loses his mind. He starts from just a normal person, just gradually gets worse. But that's essentially his traumatic event. He just continues to wipe his memory over and over. So yeah, he's actually behind the Society of the Blind Eye. He didn't form the group himself, but he's behind the memory wiping because he made an invention to wipe his memory so he wouldn't remember the crazy stuff he's seen. But in turn, it just makes him essentially senile old man. And the next character I have is Helga. Now, Helga, you could argue she's obsessive, but there's a reason why she's obsessive. She's not just obsessive just to be that. She's not just written like that. There's actually a reason. Now, Helga, as we all know, if you watch Arnold at all, you will know that she has a big crush on Arnold. But before, when she was a little kid, and this continues, she's always overlooked by her parents. And Arnold was the only person to actually help her when she needed help the most, when she was little. And it carries on, and he continues to help her, just being a nice guy. And she takes it as, he really loves me, and kind of foreshadowing, because at this point, there was not anybody that knew it was going to be a jungle that answered all the questions. But yeah, in that movie, I guess, because I did say spoilers, right? They actually ended up getting together and stuff. So I guess everything did work out how it was intended. But at the time during the show, in episode, can't remember the exact episode number, but I remember it was called Helga on the Couch. And with the therapist, she basically explains everything I've just said. She talks about, it's really hard for her to say it at first, but near the end of the session, the therapy session, she talks about how much she loves Arnold, and because he was able to help her through struggle that she had with her family and being a social outcast, essentially. And people view Helga as just this mean girl, but really she is a nice person, but she just doesn't know how to necessarily show that because he wasn't really told that. But with that being said, those are my misunderstood characters, my abstract art characters. Next we have wildcard characters. Wildcard characters correlate to millennial art. Wildcard characters are unpredictable. They can help or hurt the cause of the protagonist or whatever situation they're put in. And they're treacherous. They're not loyal. You can't really put your money on believing in them. They're two-faced. But the two characters that I have for this section, and honestly, I couldn't really decide who would be the honorable mention in here, but I decided to go with Blue being an honorable mention and Izzy being my main wildcard character. If you watch Total Drama at all, obviously another spoiler alert if you haven't, but Izzy you just never know the next thing she's gonna do. She might blow up the entire camp. She may befriend the bear. She may eat all the food. You don't know the next thing she's gonna do. She may threaten somebody. You don't know what Izzy's gonna do next, and that's basically what makes her character her. That's what makes her character special, because you never know what she's going to do next, and that's Izzy for you. And Blue, he's a bit different, like in terms of like, how do I put this? When you think of Blue, you don't necessarily think crazy. You just kind of think he's selfish, right? And that's another thing with wildcard characters. They can sometimes be selfish. They can put their thoughts and actions before somebody else's. That's typical of wildcard characters. But with Blue, you have this character that has his best friend, supposed to be his best friend, and not. But the thing is, though he is relatively loyal to Mac, that's not always the case. He can make deals with people that aren't so good. He can try to manipulate others and whatnot, and he can sometimes just be a nuisance to deal with in the house. But overall, Blue, I think, honestly, at his very worst, he's a bad character. Like, he's honestly a slightly evil, self-centered character. But at his best, he is generally a good guy. So I think, though he is on the fence a bit, I think he is a good character, but he's really borderline. Like, if you had like a tier list from characters being S tier, nicest characters, all the way down to D, F tier, bad characters, he will fall somewhere around B. And overall, he's a wildcard character. Don't know what he's gonna do next, and that's pretty much the video. Closing statements. I know this was a very long video to actually get out. It took a very long time. I mean, it's been just about a year. And I planned on this video actually getting out a lot sooner, but I had a few things going on and it didn't necessarily come out as quickly as I thought it would. But I plan on being more consistent in the future and over the next few months or so. I plan on being more consistent with the uploads. But if you guys enjoyed it, let me know in the comments, and have a nice day. See you next video.